We have customers that like what they'll do is they'll create a pipeline where it's like events in different phases. So they got like a planning stage, a upcoming stage, a during stage, a completed stage. And then what they'll do is they'll build a whole bunch of like automation off of it. So they might be like, amazing. Cool, when the event's complete, move it to the, use the date fields to move it to like the complete stage. And then that might fire off a workflow that sends emails to everybody who attended the event, right? You can do a lot, but like when I say get yourself out of the spreadsheet, it's as simple as using the objects in HubSpot to do what you were doing on the spreadsheet. We have people track expenses for their event inside of this, whether it's doing like a whole custom object for expense, like line items, or even just using simple fields on it. You can really customize this however you want because it's a HubSpot object at the end of the day. It also enables us to use a lot of the other features inside of HubSpot that make things like much easier from a like creating registrations and assets and things like that for your event, right? For example, the way that we have it set up is we lean pretty heavily on Content Hub, right? Because this is a Content Hub heavy app because we help you build registration pages, all sorts of like event promotion stuff, emails, things like that. So cool thing is like as soon as you create your event, what's really neat is that we auto-generate a registration page for you, right? So we're using HubSpot's dynamic content here to automatically create registration pages so you don't have to create a new one every single time. If you're someone who's struggling with the fact that every single time you have a new event, you've got to go clone the form, clone the list, clone the landing page, just change a couple things on it, things like that. Our event records are dynamically feeding information into all these different CMS modules that we've created that work really well with HubSpot dynamic content, right? We even have these really special form modules that have a ton of functionality baked into them, right? So for example, we can limit registration, right? So if there was too many people signed up for this event, this form actually wouldn't even show up. It would just show a little thing saying, sorry, the event's full, or whatever you wanted it to say. You could also send someone off to a wait list if you wanted to do that instead. On top of that, though, you can configure these forms to do multi-person registration. So if you want to sign up you and a friend without having to build a bunch of insane functionality in the background, you can configure it to do that. Then I have this form actually configured to show sessions. Now, I don't have any sessions on this form, but if I did, what I might see down here is not only a form to register for the event, but people can obviously also choose a whole bunch of different sessions occurring at the event if you only wanted them to sign up for certain things or whatever it may be. And we have a bunch of configuration options behind that too as well, right? So we've built in a whole bunch of these. We have a whole theme and a ton of different modules that do a million different things that you need for anything from listing pages to registrant dynamic pages for choosing sessions to just your generic like event sign up pages. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we can show you, maybe if we have a little bit of time at the end. But what happens is when someone actually fills out one of these HubSpot forms that's used with our really super cool module here, it'll actually create a registrant record, right? So we can see under happily registrants in my event, we've got this registrant for Max Cohen, okay? So when you go to these registrant records, again, these records are made to represent each time someone signs up for a different event. So it's almost like a unique pairing between a contact and an event record. And then this information gets held forever. One of the biggest issues with most event tools out there, like Eventbrite, for example, right, is the only way they represent this information on the contact record, right, or at least in any way that you can use in like reporting and analytics and automation and stuff like that, is all they do is they just like overwrite contact properties. What's the last event they signed up for? What's the last this or that? Whereas we store all this information in registrant records so you can do automation off of it, reporting off of it, and kind of stores that forever and doesn't get overwritten like a single contact property does. And this holds a lot of information. You'll also see it does things like generate a QR code, okay, which I can then stuff in an email and send to somebody, right, as soon as they register for the event. The amount of automation and stuff that you can trigger off this registrant object alone is very vast, but automatically comes with all the information that we need to put together a nice little email to say, hey, thanks for registering for the event. I'll show you an example of that in a second. We could always take it a step further. Just so everybody knows too, another thing that we can do is automatically generate things like our dynamic check-in pages, right? So I could come into here, I could check this person in. They would show as attended instead of just registered for an event. So like we update a bunch of association labels, we change a bunch of stuff on the record, right? And again, this is all just like native HubSpot CMS stuff. Here's the question that I get a lot, and it's perfect that we ended up talking, Because people ask me this and I go, oh, I got a pretty dumb answer. Oftentimes when we're like on a sales call or people are using this and they go, oh, cool, that's great. You can send an email with a QR code, which is great for most people. It's, hey, take the email, show the email, zoom in, go ahead and scan it. And when you scan that QR code, they get marked as attended inside of our system, right? But then I get people that ask me, can you make them a printable ticket? And I go, guess just print the email, which never looks good, by the way. So it's generally, I have a pretty bad answer for that. And that's because our tool doesn't like natively do any document generation, right? Because that's what you're asking for when you're saying, hey, can you generate a ticket? Luckily, James and his jolly gang came around, right? And now we have an answer for this, right? And this is like a really great example of when you use apps together in HubSpot, right? You can create these really awesome 1 + 1 = 3 moments, right? Because not only can I go ahead and create an email, for example, that I send through a workflow that sends something like this, right? Where it's like, hey, thanks for registering for the event. You can view your sessions here. Here's a QR code. Scan this, right? What I can do instead is I can use Portant, okay, to set up a little workflow that says any single time one of my happily registrant records gets created, automatically go and generate a beautiful ticket that I can then put on someone's record and send it in an email, right? So instead of just printing out an email with all the stupid information up at the top or whatever it may be, I can use my data from HubSpot generated from Event Happily to dynamically generate a PDF of a ticket, right? And then send it to somebody because all this information gets written back to that registrant object, right? So what ends up happening is, yep, they get the email, but then they can go ahead and click a link here and boom, they have a nice, beautiful PDF printable ticket that they can print out and take to the event with them and get someone to scan it and it'll check them in inside of Event Happily. These are the types of experiences and problems you can solve, or experiences you can create and problems you can solve when you get really tactical and creative in the way that you take two different apps and use them together inside of Hub. This is more of an ad for HubSpot now at this point than it is for us. But like this is one of the beauties of HubSpot, right?
It's as soon as you use the HubSpot as a source of truth, as your central source of truth, and use apps that fully buy into that as well, you get natural combinations, which before we even started talking, we were like, or when we started talking, a lot of this became obvious that it just worked out the box because we both signed up to the same philosophy where it's, oh yeah, what do you do? Oh, I save this information back as a custom property in this custom object. And then, I can actually use that information. So it just works out of the box.